In the 19th century, the Germans were supposedly united under the Holy Roman Empire. In reality, the lands were divided among petty lords who gave lip service to the emperor. In 1806, after the French Republic's desecration of the German homelands, the title of Holy Roman Emperor was discarded by the Archduke of Austria. Many were concerned that the tide of Napoleon's France would subjugate all of Germany and Europe. However, a coalition of European powers eventually led to Napoleon's demise. In order to re-establish peace in Europe, the Austrian foreign minister, Metternich, orchestrated a new order that would fairly divide the lands of Europe under several great powers, creating a balance of power that would prevent Europe from suffering any more wars. One of the introductions of the post-Napoleon New Order was the German Confederation. The German Confederation functioned the same geopolitical purpose as its predecessor, the Holy Roman Empire, keeping the minor lords of Germany divided and weak, prevent foreign influence, and most importantly, prevent Germany from unifying. The nobility of Europe shared a collective sigh of relief as the world returned to how it once was. What they didn't know is that the German Confederation would transform from an institution to a major European power. Austria and Prussia were the two largest states in the German Confederation and were constantly fighting each other for influence among the German statelets. While liberal German nationalists would look to either power for their force in uniting Germany, the two major powers were uninterested. The Habsburgs of Austria had an empire of its own, and any major introductions of more Germans into it would upset the delicate balance of the diverse cultural makeup of the state. The Prussians were dominated by aristocrats who were extremely opposed to any sort of union that eroded their power. Due to this, liberals were significantly disenfranchised. Metternich's system seemed to prevent the nationalists from properly organizing, and Austria was safe from liberalism. However, Metternich's dream would soon turn into a nightmare. In 1848, the Hungarian parliament ratified a law that would allow their government to elect representatives to their parliament. This move was unceremoniously denied by the Kaiser of Austria. This blatant rejection of liberalism caused the Hungarian kingdom to demand further autonomy, as to avoid this situation from occurring again. However, once again, the Austrians responded with an unapologetic show of force, marching their armies into Hungary itself. What was once a call for autonomy soon into a revolt for outright independence against the Austrians. While the Hungarian Revolution was manifesting, the German liberals seized the opportunity to unify Germany. After a revolution in Frankfurt, German liberals proclaimed the German state, known to us now as the Frankfurt Parliament. Only minor German states recognized the authority of the Frankfurt Parliament. Prussia and Austria would tolerate the Frankfurt Parliament for now, either due to strategic concerns or concerns of war like Austria was currently facing. The reality was that the Austrians and Prussians both did not wish for a German state to contest their presence in the region, and were only waiting to see how each other reacted to the event of the Frankfurt Parliament prior to acting. After half a year of fighting, Hungarian forces were able to gain ground against Austria. It was soon apparent that if no action was taken soon, it would lead to the Austrian Empire's collapse. It was then that in 1849, Franz Joseph called upon Tsar Nicholas to intervene in the Hungarian Independence War. The Russian Tsar would intervene, but in the exact opposite way that Franz had hoped for. Russia declared its support for the Hungarian Republic and invaded Austria, seizing all their land north of the Carpathian Mountains. With no allies to turn to, and their forces thoroughly humiliated in the west, Franz Joseph soon abandoned his claim to Galicia-Lodomeria and recognized the Hungarian Republic, which also took Austria and Croatia with it. Many expected Austria to collapse further, as the remaining territories of Lombardy, Venice, and Bohemia all had anti-German nationalist aims. However, a significant event in the German Confederation would change the fate of the Habsburgs forever. Due to Austrian and Prussian efforts to diminish the National Assembly, the Frankfurt Parliament was struggling to gain legitimacy. The die-hard liberal Republicans were starting to see the political situation as it really was. there was to be no unification of Germany without recognizing the authority of either one of the major powers in the German Confederation, Prussia or Austria. In our timeline, the Frankfurt Parliament attempted to crown the King of Prussia to become the Kaiser of Germany in January 1849. However, the crown was utterly rejected, with the infamous quote being, "I refuse to accept a crown from the gutter," implying that the liberal peasants did not have the authority to crown an emperor. After a rejection from the King of Prussia, the Frankfurt Parliament had offered the crown to the Kaiser of Austria. In our timeline, the crown was rejected, as the conservative Kaiser had no interest in Germany, seeing as they already had a large multicultural empire already. However, in this timeline, the Hungarian Revolution succeeded, and the Russians seized Galicia-Lodomeria, leaving the Austrians with less than half of their former empire. Thus, in this timeline, the humbled Kaiser of Austria graciously receives the crown from the gutter. The German nationalists now had the crown lands of the Kaiser under their direct control. The Prussian kingdom was shocked at the Frankfurt Parliament's decision. Prussia had immediately acted in retributive action against the Frankfurt Parliament, refusing to acknowledge its authority to determine the fate of the German Confederation. Prussia had then assembled a coalition of aristocratic lords to unite against the rising tide of liberalism. As a result, the German Civil War, known as the Bürgerkrieg, had broken out between the liberals under the Habsburg Kaiser and the reactionary nobility of Prussia and its allies. The fighting was fierce and lasted for years. However, it ultimately resulted in a Pyrrhic victory for the Habsburg German Confederation. The Prussians only had to cede their Rhinish territory, while keeping the rest of their territory untouched. While Habsburg Germany did not concede their claims to be the rightful German Confederation, they begrudgingly acknowledged Prussian independence. As a result of this peace, the Prussians had proclaimed their own Germany, known as the North German Confederation, comprising of all their remaining allies after the Peace of 1852. The most notable inclusion of this North German Confederation was indeed Denmark. In our timeline, after the ratification of the North German Confederation, led by Prussia, the King of Denmark had petitioned Bismarck to join the Confederation, as long as the territories of Schleswig and Holstein would remain under the Kingdom of Denmark. In our timeline, this proposal was rejected due to concerns of cultural tension. However, seeing as without this compromise they would lose their contested territories, the Kingdom of Denmark joined the German Confederation. After the Bürgerkrieg, Habsburg Germany was at an uncontested peace. With the legitimacy of the Frankfurt Parliament unquestionable, German nationalists were relieved to have at least achieved a Kleindeutschland, Little Germany, and for it to have a representational constitutional parliament, even it had meant that hardcore Republicans would still need to suffer a hereditary monarch. After the Hungarian Revolution, Czech nationalists sought to replicate the success of the Hungarians, and began insurgencies in the Austrian lands of Bohemia. Learning from their mistakes in Hungary, the Austrians and therefore German Confederation gave the lands of the Kingdom of Bohemia limited self-governance. This development was bittersweet for the Czech nationalists, and would persist without any significant incidents. Before the events of the Bürgerkrieg, there was an attempt of a North Italian secession sponsored by pan-Italian nationalists. Due to the prowess of Austrian forces in northern Italy, the secession was crushed. After Austrian entry into the German Confederation, the titles of Lombardy and Venice had no place within their borders. While the Czech autonomy could be justified as an enlightened move by the German Confederation, asserting its national borders while graciously providing an autonomy to a minority, the lands of the northern Italy had no justifiable claims for the German Confederation. The Habsburgs created the Kingdom of Lombardy-Venetia and bestowed the lands to a notable Habsburg. While the Kingdom of Lombardy-Venetia was independent on paper, it was completely economically dependent on Germany. The legitimacy of Habsburg Germany and the North German Federation was dependent on their claims to the territories of the German Confederation as established in the post-Napoleon world. Because of this, Habsburg Germany began to pressure the nations of the Benelux, which had held the territories that were granted to the German Confederation. In 1867, Habsburg Germany demanded that the Netherlands concede Limburg and Luxembourg to them. Fearing German might, they accepted the transfer. However, France would contest Habsburg expansion and would declare war on Habsburg Germany to return the land demanded back to them. The North German Federation saw this development and soon invaded Habsburg Germany as well. With Habsburg Germany surrounded on all sides, it was the opinion of many that Habsburg expansionism would result in their demise. However, Habsburg Germany quickly overran the French army. This, combined with political instability in Paris, led to France capitulating and conceding Alsace-Lorraine to the Habsburg Germans. With France leaving the war, the North German Federation soon white peaced with Habsburg Germany. The gamble of the Habsburg Germans to expand into the Benelux ended up paying out in a way that exceeded their greatest expectations. The defeated powers soon began expanding their network of alliances. The French and North German Federation would soon include Russia and a semi-united Italy into their alliance. In response, Habsburg Germany began a search for allies against their rivals. A major power who was also chafing against the Russians was the Hungarian Republic. The Hungarians had agreed to concede the German-majority Burgenland in exchange for an alliance with the Habsburgs, a diplomatic move that contradicted the hostility of the 1848 revolutions. This sudden geopolitical shift helped strengthen their alliance, which would come to be known as the Central Powers. As tensions grew in the Balkans due to the Serbian president's assassination, the Great War began on July 28, 1914. Due to Germany's large fronts with major industrial powers, it was unable to resist the initial result of the French and North Germans. The Germans were forced to establish trenches along strategically vital fronts and natural defenses in order to withstand the Entente. One of Habsburg Germany's greatest assets was their navy, which was able to contest the Allied navies fairly well. In order to protect supply lines from their colonies and disrupt the French and North German supply lines, Germany requested that Spain allow them to dock their navies to refuel. Spain agreed, which led to France attacking Spain. This was a development that the Germans had celebrated, as now the French had another front to manage, alleviating the pressure that was being put on Germany from the French front. In reaction to the prowess of the Habsburg Atlantic Fleet, the North German Confederation made a large push in the north, encircling East Frisia and blocking off the supply line to their northern port. The combination of being overwhelmed in the north and south, and overconfidence in Spanish abilities to fight the French, led to the French attempting a daring maneuver to link up with the North Germans and capitulate the Habsburg Germans. An invasion of Belgium to circumvent the Alsace-Lorraine fortifications took place. After the Belgian invasion, Great Britain joined the Central Powers to protect Belgian sovereignty. France understood that the consequence of their invasion of Belgium would be British intervention, so they had to move quickly to establish a connection with the German front line. French forces, with the help of armored units, blitzed through the Ardennes and began attempting to penetrate the Rhine. However, British involvement had led them to landing troops in the previously unsupplyable East Frisia, leading to the attempt of a connection between North Germany and France unsustainable. While Habsburg Germany was incredibly overwhelmed by the French advances, the Hungarians were able to push the Russians back, leading to a collapse of the authority of the Tsar and the Provisional Russian Republic seeking to leave the conflict. This allowed the Hungarians to commit more troops to their front with the North German Federation and threatened Silesia, the largest industrial sector in northern Germany. The breakthrough of Hungarian forces and their allies at the Provisional Polish Republic, breaking through the North German Federation's eastern flank, led to the North German Federation also seeking a quicker and more lenient peace between themselves and the Central Powers. This left France and her ally in Italy to be facing the Central Powers alone. Despite having significant gains on all their fronts, the French Republic conceded defeat, leading to the Habsburgs' victory in the Great War. After their success in the Great War, Habsburg Germany demanded the dismantling of North German Federation, as well as heavy territorial concessions. While many sought to outright annex all the North German Federation, as their claims to the German Confederation were now uncontested, the international community concluded that Habsburg Germany overextending would lead to further international instability. Thus, Habsburg Germany only took lands west of the Elbe River, besides Silesia, which was granted to the Viceroyalty of Bohemia. Due to Silesia being a formal integral part of the Bohemian Kingdom, this request was granted. This would cause significant instability issues for the Bohemian Viceroyalty, as the original purpose of it was to allow for Czech self-determination. The sudden introduction of Silesia into their core territory made the Czech autonomy German-dominated. This oxymoron would lead to an eventual conflict, but for now, the Habsburg Germans were satisfied. Thanks to the North German Federation being dissolved, there was no more contest as to who the legitimate successor of the German Confederation was, and thus, we will now be referring to Habsburg Germany as the German Confederation. Next, Germany sought to punish France, and thus expanded further into French territory. Claiming lands previously controlled by the Holy Roman Empire, Germany established the Duchy of Lorraine and allowed it into the empire. Now outright expanding into non-German territory, this annexation brought with it much skepticism. However, there was clearly no stopping the new hegemon of Europe from executing its will. While Germany was certainly flourishing as a result of their victory, the cost of war would soon be too much to ignore. There would be a complete economic collapse that would start in Frankfurt and would ripple outwards towards the rest of the world. The great European powers would soon, one by one, fall victim to the throes of what would be known as the Great Depression, leading to radicalism spreading across Europe. The left wing in Germany would radicalize further and further, with the SPD being banned during the Great War, and not unbanned since. The already irritated socialists began adopting hardline, vanguardist ideologies, and would soon begin coordinating organized resistance with the goal of causing a communist revolution in Germany. The appropriate reaction to many was obvious: continue the policy of anti-socialism and suppress the revolutionaries. However, the only child of Kaiser Rudolf, Crown Princess Elizabeth Marie, would soon begin publicly showing sympathy for the left wing of Germany, insisting that if the democratic process were able to properly occur, there would be no need for bloodshed. This controversial opinion led to many within the empire to seek alternative succession. While the succession laws of Germany were already updated to include females, the Archduchy of Austria did not update the succession yet. If Kaiser Rudolf were to die, this would then mean that Karl von Habsburg would ascend into Austria. With the drama surrounding the imperial family, the Great Depression, and the continued suppression of the SPD and KPD, there were increasing calls for the end of the monarchy of Germany herself. With so many uncertainties in Germany, the future is not looking bright. Diplomatically isolated, and with external and internal threats to their survival, it would take a miracle to preserve the dream of a united Germany. Will Germany fall, or will the dream of a greater Germany finally be achieved? You decide Germany's fate in Aftershocks of the Revolutions Redux. Come join our Discord to stay up to date with development, or subscribe to this channel for more lore-related videos. Your Loredad is going to go out and get some milk. I'll be back maybe in a week.